All right, so I'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. Just to remind everybody, since we are participating remotely for the governor's emergency order, all votes are going to be via roll call votes. So does any member of the board have any comments this morning?
The only thing I have to say is thank you so much to Lisa and her team, Patty, everyone, for the incredible job you're doing for the town. It's just amazing and so impressive, and we're so grateful for all your hard work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, echo that.
So can I just ask a general question, because the agenda has both a state of emergency and the election? What order do we have to do that in?
So I think those are two separate things. So we can go. Lisa, which one would you like to do first?
Let's do the election.
Okay. All right. So we got a memo from Mary Ellen, and I see Mary Ellen is there, right?
Yeah. Good morning.
Sorry, the video is pretty small. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, I didn't have time to review the memo this morning. Mary Ellen, could you summarize?
Yes. Well, essentially where we are at right now is still in a holding pattern, waiting for either the action of the state legislature to allow for the mechanism to postpone, not just for Winchester, but for all communities that are holding spring elections. At the same time, sort of running parallel tracks under the advice of our counsel, and Mina's on the line to confirm. We're also putting forth the paperwork with him to go to court should the timing of the legislature not happen by the close of the post office today. The warrant has a requirement to be postmarked 7 days before, so that would be in the family's mailbox tomorrow. So what we're asking is to run both, so that definitely by the end of today, I know where I stand with it. So I'm either mailing a cancellation or I'm mailing the warrant. Is that correct, okay. Mina?
Mary Ellen, that's generally right. The legislator is expected to act today to postpone or to allow towns to postpone their elections. That'll be true whether or not warrants are posted. So for towns that have already posted their warrant, they'll be able to use emergency procedures, much like the town meeting procedures, as some of you might be aware of, to postpone an election without having to go to court to do that. If the legislation doesn't pass for some reason, it's certainly expected to, or is further delayed. The other option is to seek an order from a Superior Court judge to postpone the election. I'll let Christina weigh in on the logistics of how that would work, but that's sort of the two options. So I think what we're asking this morning from the board is to authorize postponing the election generally, and to give basically give authority to Lisa, Mary Ellen, and us to either use the state legislation, which would be the simpler route, or if we're forced to because the state's not acting quickly enough, the court order. So Christina, could you just add in just the timing and how the court order would work?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. As Mina introduced me at the outset of the call, this is Christina Marshall, also from Anderson Krieger. We have a verified complaint and proposed order ready to go to submit to Middlesex Superior Court, which would be the process we would need to use to delay the election if the legislature doesn't act. That process is usually pretty quick. I know last week 2 towns had elections actually last week and were able to postpone them in a matter of, I think, 24 hours or so. So here it's a bit tricky because the courts are currently shut down except for emergency matters. This certainly would qualify, in our opinion, as an emergency matter. So all we would need to do is just bring the complaint to court and then get a judge who's willing and able to rule on it. And as Mina mentioned, that order would kind of take care of everything that the town needed. So would handle postponing the election. You wouldn't have to pick a new date for the election quite yet. It also deals with absentee ballots and registering to vote timing and everything like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that answers a question that was in my mind, whether we, are just postponing generally or whether we need to set another date for it. And you're saying it's just in general.
Exactly. I believe under the proposed legislation, you would have to announce the new date 20 days in advance of the new election. So, you do have to pick a date eventually, but you certainly don't have to do it now.
Yeah, and at the moment, the legislation, I think, is also drafted to require the new date to be within, I think the way it's worded is within the last quarter of this fiscal year. And if that's not feasible, within the first quarter of the next fiscal year. So it sort of anticipates that we may still have an issue by the end of June, but the key is just the 20 days in advance.
Can I ask a quick question? Just so for the contested races, like school committee, for instance, what is the deal with the term limit? Like, if we postpone this election indefinitely, what happens to the school committee?
That's a good question. There's existing state law that says, and I believe your charter says the same thing, that your term extends until essentially you're replaced. So if there was a runoff for some reason or a recount for some reason, usually that would be the same rule. The proposed legislation is explicit about that, just so that if there is any law out there to the contrary, basically the current school committee member would keep their seat until the election is held. So it extend folks' terms a little bit longer.
Okay.
Mina, this is Mike. I think that is what it says. I have a question on the absentee ballots. Mary Ellen, have we received quite a few of those or requests for those? Because, if we're looking towards June 30th, I'm not sure, number one, if we're going to be out of the woods at that point, or if we are, it's also a period of time when people typically leave town. So, I'm just concerned that we're also going to have, low turnout the longer we wait.
Yeah, I have, prior to the emergency situation we're in, we mailed out 88 absentee ballots that were requested previously from the beginning of the year, when people can check, that they want all elections for the calendar year. And just since last Wednesday, sort of the chatter on the resident Facebook page created about another 120 ballots that we mailed out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I did come in this morning to another 20 ballot requests. And actually, I was going to ask Mina about that offline. I don't think I'll need to fulfill them, but we can talk about that later. I certainly know that the legislation has the absentee ballot requirements as well. So, elections is my thing, and you folks can rely on me to certainly get the word out, do whatever advertising we need to. If we do pick this election rescheduled date to be in and around what we typically would consider the end of the school year, we are concerned. I'm concerned about people leaving for their vacations and such if things are in a better place. But we will just do absentee balloting then. People can qualify under the absentee ballot language that says they're absent from town. So I think we can handle that.
And should we, have more of an effort to let people know what the process is, especially that we've tweaked it a little bit where people can request them by email, but have to put in that information about being quarantined if they are,
Right.
And so it's a little bit different.
Oh no! As soon as I know today from either Mina's office or the state, we will begin the sort of marketing campaign to get that out. What I already have the postage money set aside for the warrant, so I was going to go ahead and get the approval of management to do the cancellation notice to every household. And in that cancellation notice, I can give them some more understanding and comfort level about how this all is going to move forward. And then we will just keep doing, what we do, which is good communication to the public.
I just had a quick follow-up on what Amy said. This is Jackie on telephone, but and then also something about Mike's question real quick. So with Amy's, as far as the length of the term, Mina, I assume it's as if someone kind of resigned their position or couldn't finish either because they go to another post or had to move away or something like that. In other words, the new candidate, the new person who wins that election, let's say in this case, hypothetically, June 15th, they'll carry on until, let's say if it's school committee, I'm assuming it's three years, like select board and planning board, they carry on for the length of the term, not till June 15th, but until March 30th or whatever the term would have been. And then regarding what, I'm assuming that's correct. And then regarding what Mary Ellen was saying, just to clarify, so Mary Ellen, any absentee votes that you've received would be canceled, I'm assuming, along the lines of what Mike was asking.
Yeah, I'm actually I don't believe they are. My understanding from the Secretary's office is that the ballots that have been printed with the March 31st date will be the exact same ballots that we will issue to the public on the newly scheduled date. The government is not going to reprint all of the documentation that we've done thus far. The programming of my machines is done. The machines are ready to roll with a March 31st date. And so, Mina, my understanding is I will just be simply running those absentee ballots through. Unless, of course, under the law, the voter can appear on election day and sign a certificate to cancel their absentee should it not be processed yet. And if that's the case, then they could vote in person. But I do need to confirm that with Mina. Am I right, Mina, on that?
Yeah, so let me answer both those questions, both of Jackie's questions, starting with the second one. Mary Ellen's right. The absentee ballots that have been submitted to date would count under the proposed legislation, and effectively the court order that we'd be seeking carries into it exactly the same process as the proposed legislation. So that wouldn't change under either approach. The only difference between holding the election on the 31st and now is it would extend the period in which people could provide absentee ballots depending on when the election was held. You might actually be able to expand the voter rolls further because it might create a new registration date as well. But Mary Ellen's absolutely right. It doesn't, no one's vote that's been cast would be lost. They would have to resubmit absentee ballots, etc. So that's the answer on that note. I want to answer Jackie's other question and sort of get back to one procedural thing just to be clear about what's in front of you. Jackie, to your other question, I suppose at the moment that you're right, that the term would end, sort of from the date of when the election should have been, or the appointment or the date that sort of is triggered by that election. It's a little bit uncharted waters at the moment, though, and if we see the elections get pushed out till August, I think that's going to be an open question that either the legislator or perhaps town meeting by bylaw is going to have to address at some point if folks' terms are getting truncated by a significant amount, 6-7 months, as opposed to a month. And it's going to be different, obviously, town to town on that and position to position. A 3-year term is less impacted, but to the extent some of these terms that might be in a town election are a year or two, I can see some towns getting antsy about somebody not getting essentially a full term. But we're not there yet. At the moment, I think, Jackie, your assumption's right, that the term would end when it normally would have, as opposed to all elections sort of continuously being pushed out further and further. And it's also likely we're going to have to figure, if the latest this goes is probably going to be, no matter what, there's going to be the federal election in November. If this is still going in this form, we're probably going to start seeing moves from the legislator to do mail voting or some other system to keep elections on schedule. The last thing, I just want to be clear, and Mary Ellen, I want to make sure that we're on the same page too with everybody. Because of the process and because of the emergency closings of the court, my recommendation of what this board should authorize and what the town's plan would be to see what happens today with the legislator. If the legislator votes before close of business to allow postponing elections, Mary Ellen can send the cancellation notice that March 31st is not happening and the election will be rescheduled at a later date. If we don't get that go ahead from the legislator, my suggestion would be that you, this is a little bit more involved, but it would be to send out the warrant as if the election was happening on the 31st and immediately seek the postponement tomorrow from the court, because that's less of a guaranteed route, and it would require a little bit more messaging because you'd have been sending the warrant and almost immediately after updating people that it's moved. I think the good piece of this is that there is still, I just don't think we can get a court order while the legislation is unclear. That's the one part that's going to be a little hard. Unless you wait till tomorrow, Mary Ellen, to send that. That's the only other option. That's what I was wondering.
Okay.
That's a good idea, and also it's consistent with the trial court's orders about trying to minimize people coming to the courtroom, for the health and safety of those coming as well as those working. You could even, if it came to it tomorrow, I'm sure you've already considered this, Mina, is faxing it and then calling the clerk and asking if they need an original signature requiring your appearance. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Mary Ellen, I realize that that's a bit of extra work, and so I guess my question is there any chance if we don't have the legislation today, were you thinking you just wouldn't mail the other one, or you'd mail a cancellation notice subject to the court order?
Well, I'm still thinking about the fact that you're considering me sending out the warrant. I guess I'm feeling like the public is so confused about this, and I'm not certain that would be prudent. I understand legally what you're saying, but I'm just feeling like is a better avenue that we push our delegation again, we make some more phone calls. And I mean, quite frankly, I don't understand why Secretary Galvin is not, picking up the phone and getting this thing over with. It seems like this is not a time for this to be dragging out as long as it already has. Quite frankly, I'm sorry.
Mary Ellen, is it possible to wait until tomorrow to send either the warrant or postponement notice?
Well, it is the postmark, the definition of mail to every dwelling 7 days before. So that's in the bylaw. It doesn't specifically say postmarked on 7 days before. I would think we could probably get away with postmarking tomorrow. Mina, would you agree?
I think knowing that some legislation will pass, whether it's today or tomorrow, or that we can get a court order, I feel fairly comfortable with that. I mean, it's a technical problem, but it's not. I don't think it's fatal in these circumstances.
Okay.
I think it's probably appropriate. And let me reiterate too. Whatever we decide, I think it's helpful to call the delegation and have the town reach out again. I know
So Mina,
Yeah.
on that note, I talked to Mike Day last night, and he is pretty sure everything is going to happen by mid-afternoon. So
Yeah.
he said the Senate's going to go into session this morning, and then the House shortly after. So he was fairly confident. He said that the issues around the language have all been worked out.
Good. Yeah. And we did get, I think late Thursday, the Senate president announced that she was going to take it up, which is good indication that it is happening today. It's barring some other emergency that changes that I'd be worried about, but I have no reason to think it won't pass today. But that's, we're just waiting for all different people to act.
So actually, I have a bigger concern. So the post office just rejected our mass mailing to seniors on Friday. So, you know why?
I do know why.
Okay.
It's because that should have been first class metered upstairs, and they tried to use a bulk permit, and you have.
Okay, that's good to know.
Internal.
All right, good. Good. All right, never mind.
Good.
Okay, so do we agree then that we can wait until tomorrow to mail it out if the legislature doesn't act in time today?
Yes.
Mary Ellen?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay, you're good with that? Okay. And everybody on the board is good with that? We don't need a vote for that.
Yeah.
I see people nodding. So, okay. So my concern with postponing the election is that we don't know when we're going to be able to have it. We don't know that we'll be over this. And my concern is how it affects town meeting. So if we're going to hope for town meeting to do work and a third of the seats, I understand that people who are running for re-election for town meeting will still be able to be members, but I know that there's a lot of people who are not. So I am concerned about that. So if possible, I would like to see if we can have it so that we can have absentee ballot without people having to send a justification for it. Essentially using absentee ballot as a vote by mail, even if that's technically not what the legislature has passed. Mina, is that possible to just have like a general allow everybody to do absentee ballot?
No.
Mary Ellen, tell me if you're hearing otherwise, but I think the reasons for absentee ballot are being relaxed pretty significantly, partly by this legislation. One of the things that's actually been holding up the legislation is whether to do something more drastic like some states have done outside of emergencies, like mail voting or email registration and so on, and more simple email registration. So it might be possible. I don't think you're going to get a Superior Court judge to say, one town can do it completely differently. So that might be harder. So if the legislation doesn't do it on its own for all towns, your only other option would be seeking special legislation from the governor to do that. And I think a lot of folks in the legislature are going to feel like this issue has been put to bed. So short answer, Mariano, is I think the forgiveness for what the sort of the way that the rules are interpreted around absentee ballot are going to be a lot more permissive in this go around. Everybody's in an emergency. Everybody is kind of presumably unable to, for reasons of physical health, come to the polls. But I am not sure we're going to see a full absentee ballot election this go around.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd like to see the legislation say that we should send an absentee ballot to every registered voter, but I understand that's probably not going to happen. So just the current ask for an absentee ballot by email, to me, is fine, as long as, hopefully we can remove the requirement of having to put a reason for it, because without having a date for the election, it's hard for somebody to truthfully say that they'll be in self-quarantine on that date, given that there is no date that we're setting.
Can we send along with the cancellation notice, an absentee form with that language for people to sign or check, so then they can we're just closing the loop on it. We're giving them everything they need to just have that piece of paper in front of them. If we're doing the mailing anyway.
I mean, logistically, I could do it. I could put one side the cancellation and one side an absentee ballot, then the voter would have to scan that and send it in to me. I mean, I think we have been doing absentee ballot requests via email, oh gosh, for so many years now. And then people do follow up with a signature. I'd have to give that some thought. I mean, I could do it. At least it could prompt people to go online and, you know, email me or download it or mail it in. I mean, we'd have plenty of time once we know what that date is. But I am telling you, for this whole situation, whatever the date is, I am not going to be auditing whether someone has properly signed a request for balloting. If they email me, they're getting a ballot, and as far as I'm concerned, it's counting.
I just think for some of our seniors too, where email maybe isn't, you know, that easy for them, or, you know, it may be more helpful for them than other people that are already in the loop.
The seniors, we do actually target our seniors who are disabled already. They get an automatic, under the election law, they get an automatic disabled absentee ballot. They only need to sign it once. It carries for the whole year. So I do know my electorate quite well, having been here a long time now. So we can do a targeted mail once we know the date. If you want to ask me to do additional mailings and things like that, I'm happy to do it. We can break down the demographic, you know, any which way you'd like. You know, so I'm you know, able to do that.
So Mary Ellen, this is Susan. Mary Ellen, I have a question. In this mailing, it sounds like you're not sending an envelope and you can put two pieces of paper, the warrant and the application for the absentee ballot together. You have to be actually just sending one sheet of paper. Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct.
Okay.
Warrants
All right.
are typically just, and they're cheap, you know, 29 cents. I can do a first class mailing with envelopes and return envelopes, you know, but it's just a matter of cost.
Okay.
I mean, I think one sheet with instructions in the back on how to get an absentee ballot is fine, and it should just be one mailing.
Okay.
Are we ready to vote on this?
Yeah. So if you could read the motion that's in the document.
Moved and seconded to postpone the annual town election for the town of Winchester, Mass, contingent upon the approval of either 1, a court order granted by the District Court of Middlesex County, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, or 2, a positive vote of the state legislature approving the request to postpone all annual town elections in the Commonwealth, whichever comes first, effective today, March 23rd, 2020.
Second.
Mike and Mariano, I apologize. Could I just ask for one correction to that? It would be the Superior Court. So just.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was wondering about that.
Yeah, including the friendly amendment for the Superior Court.
Second.
Okay, I heard a second from Jackie. So let's vote. Susan?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's unanimous. Okay. Thank you, Mary Ellen, for all the work. I know that this is a trying time for your office is doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right.
All right. So next we have a state of emergency. Lisa, do you want to cover what the?
Yeah. So Mina, don't run away if you're still on the phone.
Wasn't planning to, but thank you.
So the Board of Health passed a state of emergency. They called it a public health state of emergency for the purposes of ordering that service industries be closed. And I think there was still some questions about what the select board does or doesn't need to do. And then just to give an example, there's sort of a movement around surrounding towns. I think Cambridge, Arlington, Boston, Framingham, a few others that are interested in issuing a stay-in-place order. So who would have the jurisdiction and ability to do that?
This is one of those questions that I think is being figured out in real time, for better or for worse. I think there are some serious questions about what that really means when a town issues a stay-in-place order and how enforceable it is. Most of the ones I've seen have had a significant number of exceptions, including the one that's getting the most news out there, the Bay Area counties in California. A lot of exceptions that essentially mirror what the governor is already asking people voluntarily to do, which is don't go out unless you really need to, and so on. Typically, something that, the right to travel and the right to access one's own property, commercial or residential, those are constitutionally protected. So there are some limits, I think, on whether a town can say you may never leave, one way or another. If you look closely, for instance, at the marathon bombing declaration that Governor Patrick issued, it actually encouraged people. It was reported as a stay-in-place order, but it was actually a request at the end of the day. And I think at the time there might have been some questions about legal power. So all of that is a way of saying, I think what those towns are doing is trying to put more weight and more encouragement behind asking people to do what public health and safety experts have been requesting, which is don't go out unless absolutely necessary. I am not sure that, well, I guess I have a sort of legal question and a policy question about whether it's the best use of the town's enforcement capabilities to try to keep people in their houses, as opposed to doing everything you can to message that that's the right thing to do. So that's sort of the upshot of it. The other thing is to keep in mind is that unlike the other places that are thinking, so one of the other places thinking about these are the island communities, Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. You have very limited ability to kind of actually cut off somebody from a surrounding community coming through Winchester. And so constantly having to check whether somebody's subject to the order, is out for one of the exceptions, may be more cumbersome. So those are sort of the issues with it. It's legally questionable whether it's enforceable in any way other than giving people more pause about going out.
Can I just ask you a quick question? And this has nothing to do with the importance of considering such an order given the health crisis. But I was just kind of looking online to see if there was anything new with the state. Would there be any kind of preemption issue with the state on that, Mina? In any event, I recognize that if it's more of a suggestion, then likely not.
That is another issue, that if the state issues its own shelter-in-place order and sort of decides that it has authority for it, there is some suggestion out there that the federal government and the state government have more authority to do that. I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. Perhaps the federal government, or the state, if it starts asking the National Guard to enforce it, it might have more authority. Generally speaking, local boards of health in Massachusetts have as much or more power than, in fact, the Department of Public Health, because a lot of their jurisdiction predates the state public health authorities. That being said, when at the outset of this, we looked at this issue of what the boards of health authority would be, and the state board of health authority, the local board of health authority is generally over folks that need to be quarantined because they themselves have health issues that present a risk. This is sort of it's certainly a situation the statute never contemplated, which is that we wouldn't know who's healthy and not, and therefore other people may need to be quarantined as well. But
Right. Just a super fast follow-up, because I'm sure others want to contribute. But I guess what I'm getting to is, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Baker's issued a stay-at-home or only essential business, like, in other words, short of a shelter-in-place, but like many other states have done. So in other words, not a shelter-in-place, but simply, only if you have essential business. Otherwise, you should be working at home, which personally I think is kind of surprising that he hasn't, but maybe I'm wrong on that. But if he has not, then I understand why the towns are concerned about whether or not something else needs to happen at the local level. If he has, and so therefore if I'm wrong and he has issued something like that, then I guess the question would be whether or not something at the local level would be more than that, or sort of almost the same. So maybe that might be helpful to the board if you happen to know, because I haven't seen anything that he's issued anything. And again, short of a shelter in place, but, only leave the house basically for, groceries, gas, and if you're an essential worker or something.
Mike, I see you have your hand raised in Zoom here.
Oh, that was a while ago. I just
Okay.
butted in.
Sorry.
So
the
the governor has not issued anything like that, Jackie, which is exactly why the surrounding towns are talking about putting their own order in place. I haven't gotten a copy of what's been going around yet, so I think as soon as I share that, as soon as I get it, I can share it with you. But I guess the question, sort of preemptively, Mina, is, in terms of select board versus board of health, who could issue what?
That's also a good question. My take would be that in control of town buildings and town staff, or sort of redirecting town resources, should come from a combination of you, Lisa, with support, preferably from the board. Some things you could probably do on your own, but should come from the board. Issues of public health based on illness of particular individual, identified cases, for instance, would come from the Board of Health. The Board of Health, on the other hand, shouldn't be saying town office buildings should be shut down. That's not really their purview. Ideally, and I think right now most towns have been able to do this, to avoid exposure for the town later on by a business that says the wrong entity did it because the lines are not crystal clear. Anything more drastic than what sort of you already have, I would suggest come from both boards, or at least if one board initiates it, the other should say that it agrees with it if that's feasible. The Board of Health certainly is given the role and has the expertise over the over public health matters, and they're in a better position to determine what might be necessary. But the select board has jurisdiction over things like public ways and, like I said, town buildings and staff that might be what you actually need to control. So it helps if the left hand knows what the right hand's doing on this at this point.
So at this point in time, maybe a confirmatory vote by the select board on the same order that the Board of Health voted on Wednesday last week?
I think that'd be helpful. Again, it clarifies that you're all on the same page. And then for both this board and the Board of Health, this is in a way following up Jackie's point. I would be very careful not to have conflicting advice from the town and the state to the extent that conditions in town don't warrant something different. Because I think folks are already pretty confused about what to do and not to do. And the more that, towns are can keep on the same message, the better.
I think the other thing too is that we've made a decision different from these other communities that are considering these more blanket orders that we're not providing residents with information on presumptive positives. So, I think it will seem out of the blue, and it's one of the reasons that I think our recent orders have not really had an impact and are generally ignored. I think people literally don't see the risk. They see that we have only reported in the past couple weeks 2, or if people have been paying attention, 3. So, I think that we kind of are an outlier with that relative to some of these other communities.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard for people to understand the urgency of this when there's only 3 cases in all of Winchester, as far as anybody other than the Board of Health knows.
Lisa, what do you think maybe the issue on the table is whether we reconfirm as our board the Department of Health order? So I apologize if I'm going a little sideways, but at some point, Lisa, maybe you could let us know which direction you think these communities are heading. Like if it's sort of like a limit on movement, as Mina was sort of pointing out, or is it more of a preference to kind of stay at home? I know those sound like maybe they could be the same thing, but I guess there's maybe somewhat slightly different.
I know. I think that there's a fine line between what we're ordering and what we're recommending, and right now we're seriously recommending that people maintain social distancing, which includes staying at home. I didn't get a report from the police as to what happened this weekend. I was curious to know if the warm weather on Friday brought a lot of people out, and how the police were able to deal with that. Because I know that last week they were spending a lot of their resources breaking up practices, pickup games, college kids drinking in the woods, house parties. So I think it's certainly a fine line. And I think what Mina said about there's technically not much difference between what's happening here under the current order and what's happening in San Francisco. I think it's more the messaging that's out there. So if there's a regional order, then even if it doesn't legally make a difference, if there's an order that Boston and Arlington and Cambridge put out and people ask us if we're following it, we say no. I don't know if that gives people more permission or less permission to go out and do different things. So I would say it really is dependent on what that language is and what the exceptions are, and it's also dependent on how good we are at our messaging without having to have an order.
I have to say, it seems like it would help if there was something else from the state so that there wouldn't be sort of like a variety of efforts, that are trying to safeguard residents. It would be really helpful, because it seems like every time you look, search for this, there's just, and I'm not making any political comment, but it seems like the word from the state is that they're not going to issue anything else. So I think so I totally appreciate and applaud the concerns by other communities as well as ours. I just want to throw this out. This is, again, not trying to be sideways, but I saw something recently about when people go hiking or whatever, just some kind of, they call them etiquette rules, or really like safety rules. And I couldn't tell whether or not that related to our fells, because I think it was just so on point that maybe if there's a few things that, like this one was saying, still keep your distance, go single file. If you have to pass someone, kind of let them know. I mean, it sounds sort of like a no-brainer, but still things that people, it just helps them to think of things, more safety precautions. So I didn't know if there was maybe something else that might be specific to our community that we might want to consider, not today necessarily, but at some point.
Yeah, I mean, Jackie, your first comment about it would be helpful if the state issued some guidance is probably the overwhelming theme of just about every regional or statewide call I'm on with other communities. We were sort of balking at this issue when we're dealing with the schools. We're now sort of balking at this issue when dealing with daycares and then salons, and then now with sort of more things in general. So it's a frustration that we have, because every town is spending a lot of time and resources trying to do this piecemeal.
So
I was going to say, Marianne, sorry, I did hear that maybe this morning the governor is going to announce a statewide stay-at-home order that begins midweek. So, I just heard from some of those people at the State House that that's kind of on the table.
Yeah.
Oh, that's helpful to know,
Imminently.
Mike. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure that we would want to tell people that they have to stay in their homes. Number one, as Mina said, I don't think we have the power to do that, to enforce that. We have state roads that go through our town, so I don't think that we would be able to enforce people walking or driving on a state road through the town. And we don't have the density that a lot of cities around the world have set that force people to stay at home. So, I mean, I think that, avoiding any gatherings of people, that's one thing, right? So pick up basketball games, parties, things like that. But as far as the Board of Health order, I'm not sure what our role there is. We're not the licensing authority for salons and barbers. The Department of the Health Department is. So I'm not sure what we would be voting there.
Well, what I don't have, Mariano, is I don't have the language of the state of emergency that they declared. So they did that first, which then helped justify this particular order. So part of what I'm wondering is, I'm doing a series of things such as, like closing buildings, and we're going to go to remote operations next week. But I don't know if there's a value in the board declaring just the general state of emergency, which might then help justify some of the things that we might need to do later.
Okay.
Do you want me to email that? I think I have a link. Or are you just talking about mirroring it? I mean, do you need a quick copy or?
I think we can probably come up with our own language if we wanted to either support the Winchester Board of Health declaration of a public health emergency issued March 18, 2020, and in the in the interest of protecting public health during the corona pandemic. So it's
any comments?
I guess I'm sorry. I just have one more. Maybe what we should do is, I know, like my firm, for example, has Mina's probably does as well, has a coronavirus task force, which I'm sure Lisa is doing like 24/7. But maybe the board should be available. I know there's a time period for the agenda and that sort of thing, but should be thinking about fairly frequent, even if it's a short meeting, video conference, teleconference, whatever, to think of if there's anything specific to our community that we want to include in any kind of a public suggestion or public notice. Like, for example, the thing about hiking in the fells or something. I mean, I'm not trying to overstate something, but just going forward, maybe, or even if the state does issue something on midweek that gets reverberated through all of our channels as well, so that there's, we just assist with making sure people know. That's just a suggestion. I don't know. Maybe you've already been doing that anyway, I'm sure, but to the extent that the board needs to vote on anything. Thank you.
All right, so let me first take any other comments on the declaration of state of emergency. Amy, Susan, Mike.
So the matter on the table is basically whether or not we're supporting the Board of Health's decision earlier this week or last week to declare a state of emergency in Winchester. That's what we're talking about, right? And then there's the other conversation about doing a stay at home if these other surrounding towns do that. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think my question would be, first of all, I think I'm certainly in support of the Board of Health there on the front lines and understand the situation in Winchester. I don't have the same data they have, so I certainly trust their judgment and support that. the stay at home, I think I'm a little bit more on the fence about. I think, and Lisa, when you get the language, I think it would be helpful to see what these surrounding communities are thinking about. I tend to think that I'm with you. I think if the state's preparing to do something at the statewide level, and gosh, I wish something would happen at the federal level as well. But I think I would rather kind of wait and see what happens, particularly if the stay at home versus what we're doing now isn't drastically different. Because I think that there's a thin line between ordering people to do certain things and causing panic. And it is a panic situation. I understand that. I'm not trying to downplay it. Believe me, I'm feeling panicked myself. But I think, I think just from a truly mental health perspective, I think we need to be careful about what we're throwing out there and what terms we're throwing out there. And if there's something that comes down at the state government level that we can latch onto, I would prefer to do that versus a more regional stance. So that's kind of where I am on those two things.
Yeah, this is Susan. I generally agree. You said it. It would be much better if the state could say something clear and sort of emphasize that it's not just about individual cases or individuals, that we as a community, as a society, should be following these guidelines about staying away from social gatherings and basically staying at home if possible, just because we're at a critical point in containing this virus. So if we could come up with language as a town, as a board, that would just very clearly in the beginning sentence say that we support the state of emergency, and the Board of Health's declaration, I think that would add some weight. So I think it's worth doing. And then, let's see what the regional group drafts and maybe, wait on that a little bit.
So I will say that every town is different. So when different communities were sharing what they've done, whether it's posting it on the web EOC or just sharing it in general emails, some were saying the Board of Health, Select Board, Town Manager, School Committee all declared a state of emergency. So I think it was, I actually, and I don't know if they determined that any one of them has the particular authority, probably the Board of Health, and all the rest were just like confirmatory or just covering the bases.
Mm-hmm.
I think, in my view, I think rather than have a vote where we say that we support the Board of Health's state of emergency declaration, I would want us to just declare state of emergency ourselves. I don't want to set the precedent that any Board of Health decision is contingent on us later approving it if something like that happens in the future. Like the Board of Health making some decision a month from now and we didn't meet, and somebody saying, well, it's whatever the Board of Health says is not valid until the Select Board approves it, just like they did a month ago, right? So if we're going to do a state of emergency, I think we just do it standalone rather than affirming the Board of Health one.
And it may make sense for us to kind of have static, meeting dates that are posted for the Select Board, every week, and we can cancel them if we need to, but just so people have the expectation and know that there may be decisions that we're putting out there on a regular basis, and give us the opportunity to get in front of the open meeting law requirements, and because we're going to be probably doing this for quite some time, and everything may completely change tomorrow. And I know that we will probably we get out from under things by an emergency declaration and things like that. But I think setting an expectation that there's a meeting that even if we're just doing this for 15 minutes, it may be helpful for people.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. We can post.
Yeah, I think it also shows
either-
good leadership,
Yeah.
leadership with the town. Obviously, Lisa and her team have been incredible, but also just as a board, so I completely agree with what Mike said.
So why don't we post a meeting for every Thursday morning, let's say 8:30 or 9 a.m., and then every Monday evening moving forward, and then we can cancel them if we don't need them.
Sounds good.
Does that make sense?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and then that way Lisa and her team will know that if there's something she needs our approval with, it's already set up.
Yeah.
So do you want to set a time now for Thursday morning?
Sure. Does 8:30 work
8:30 is
for the
good.
office, Lisa? Or is 9 better?
8:30 is better.
Okay. Does 8:30 work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So let's do 8:30 on Thursdays, and then and then on every Monday.
Every Monday at 7 or whatever. We'll.
Yeah, 7:30 and 7 if we have executive session.
Okay.
Mariano and Lisa, would you like me to hold those times on our end, at least for me at the moment, or just leave it on an as needed? Lisa will let me know.
You can certainly hold them, Nina, and just wait for me to tell you to come. Just because I know you're busy, so we just want to book you. But I mean, Monday nights. Are you still going to town meetings, Nina?
Well, Lexington was supposed to start town meeting tonight, but they've issued an emergency declaration moving that. So I don't want to say I have nothing to do, but my schedule is freed up considerably in March and April until we figure out what we're doing with that town meeting and the one after it.
Well, somebody will sue us soon enough anyway, Mina. So we'll have you'll have some work.
Art gets to do the suing part. I just I get to do the fun stuff. All right, so
We still have the MBTA stuff. So can if you guys do consider a state of emergency, can you make it 12:01 a.m. tomorrow night? Or tomorrow.
Yeah.
What is it? I just want to make sure I'm understanding. What will that? This is just more semantics, right? Just that we're supporting the Board of Health, but we're doing it in a way that just kind of. I understood what Mariana was saying, but this is not adding to anything that's happening in terms of restrictions. The select board.
I mean, from an operational standpoint, one of the suggestions that I would make is that we do a reverse 911 call. So if I say reverse 911, hey, everybody, we're changing transfer station hours, we've closed town buildings, etc. It sounds different than saying, the select board has voted to declare a state of emergency effective 12:01 a.m. Starting on Tuesday. The transfer station hours have been changed to blankety blank. The town offices are closed, and any other thing that we want to put forward. It just sounds better. So it is semantics.
Okay. All right. That's all I wanted to know. I just wanted to make sure that there weren't other restrictions that we're putting on it because of this. Not that I would be against them necessarily. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question? Maybe this is directed to Mina. Is it helpful with our state of emergency announcement to indicate anything like reference to the state's emergency state of emergency announcement, which was like 10 days ago or something, or is it just totally not necessary? I'm not in any way stating a preference. I'm just kind of curious, just so in case there's some press or something that we're like one of, only a few select boards or something that have done that. I mean, I don't have an issue with that personally, but I just wanted to double check that.
It doesn't hurt to reference it just to be clear on what you're doing. the only, I mean, so these sort of local declarations of emergency don't really add power to any particular entity. And there is a Civil Defense Act of 1950 that theoretically could be triggered when you declare one, but it doesn't. All it says is that you can skip certain formalities of government, which you could anyway under state law now. So the reason I bring that up is that it doesn't hurt to add a reference to the state declaration of emergency so that folks don't get unnecessarily panicked that the board is doing something above and beyond, or that the situation's worse in Winchester than everywhere else. We've also had questions in one or two communities that have declared their own emergency that asking, has the town just declared martial law or made this some bigger thing? And by no means is that what's happening. So short answer, Jackie, yeah, it doesn't hurt, and because it sort of gives it the right level of importance.
Okay, thank you. Should we, Lisa, are you okay with that, or do?
Yes, I was just looking up the date of the that's the state of emergency by the governor, and it was March 10th.
I think it was March 10th. Yeah, March 10th. And then obviously if anything happens this week, you can add that too, if to the extent you want to any future notice or notification. Thank you, Mina. That was definitely just something I wanted to double check. Thank you.
So I mostly copied the one from Easton, but I can read out a draft declaration. Everybody's okay with that? So I have, whereas the worldwide outbreak of COVID-19 described as a pandemic by the World Health Organization and the effects of its extreme risk of person-to-person transmission throughout the Commonwealth significantly affect the life and health of our people and safety of the public. And whereas the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has issued a declaration of emergency on March 10th, 2020, and determined that the immediate public action is needed to prevent, minimize, or mitigate damage to public health, safety, or general welfare of the people of the Commonwealth. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Winchester, Massachusetts, hereby declare that effective as of 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday, March 24th, 2020, a state of emergency is declared to exist in the Town of Winchester.
And if I could propose adding the last whereas about whereas the Winchester Board of Health declared a public health emergency on March 18th, 2020 with the interest of protecting public health during the coronavirus pandemic.
Okay.
So moved.
So effective, so they issued it on March 18th, effective 12:01 a.m. Friday, March 2020.
I'll send you Lisa, I'll send you the document that you
never mind, forget about it. Okay, yeah.
Mariana,
okay, and I'll give you the language for
the only thing that I was concerned about is if we're referring back to the governor's order on March 10th and the governor is coming out with an order later today or tomorrow or that's starting Wednesday, I think referring back to it may not be necessary to refer back to other orders. It just may create more confusion rather than just supporting the existing state of emergency level of declared state of emergency.
So, I mean, one thing that I would say is we don't have to just publicize we don't have to send out a press release on the state of emergency, right? We can just post it, given that we are like a week later than the state and the state is changing. But this gives Lisa the ability to do things like say, hey, due to the state of emergency declared by the select board, we're doing this or that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Mike, does that address the issue with, the confusion that the governor might do something else this week?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, I don't know if our Board of Health is also going to take independent action as well. The Board of Health could issue something later today, or so it's fine. I mean, I don't think it has much of an impact, or precludes us from saying the Board of Health has issued this order, and that's why the town is taking the action to do X, Y, and Z. I think it'll have minimal impact, but it's fine. Thanks.
Okay. Did I hear somebody say so moved when I finished reading that?
I did. Yep, I moved it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any other comments on it?
Nope.
Okay. Jackie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Yes. All right, Lisa, I'll send you the wording, and then you can add the last whereas on the Board of Health.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's the agenda for this morning, and then we will continue at 7 p.m. for executive session.
Yep. Reminder that there's 2 separate call-in numbers. There's one specifically for 7 to 7:30, and the other one for 7:30.
Yep.
And the other will be
Yeah.
streamed on WinCam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So question for you guys. So we will need things signed. I also have your IDs here at Town Hall. Do you want us to go to your houses, or do some of you want to come here? You can just let us know.
I can come there.
Yeah, I can come there.
Just let me know when.
Sometime before noon, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want them signed today before we vote them?
Well, you can come tomorrow too.
I mean, do we have to sign them to? Is there anything that needs to be signed today, or?
That's what I understood. That they. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Tomorrow is fine.
What hours
so
is the town hall open today?
Today we're open till 7. Patty and I will be here through the select board meeting, so we're here late. Tomorrow we're open 8 to 4.
Okay. Which door is open?
None.
Okay.
So you'll have to just call me.
So sometime in the afternoon, I'll be there, but I'll text you.
I'll
Okay.
come
Is
tomorrow morning.
it,
I'll text you too.
yeah, is it okay to come today? I mean, that looks a little better for me if that's possible, but if there's a procedural issue with that, I totally respect that, and I'd come tomorrow.
I mean, if you don't mind signing things you haven't voted on, but
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. We'll rip it up if we don't vote it.
Lisa,
there's three MOUs that definitely I would love to see passed, but we'll talk about that tonight.
It's actually
Lisa, can I ask
Four.
sorry. I ask a logistical question and provide gratuitous legal advice at the same time?
Yes.
So the logistical advice is can you just send me the call-in numbers if you want me on for tonight? I only have general Zoom one. And then there is a state statute that has been, in my opinion, underused for the past couple of years, allowing electronic signatures to count just as well as wet signatures for almost any purpose, as long as there's some way to be reasonably certain that the person signing is who they said they are. In this particular case, I can't imagine that anybody else has an interest in signing things the select board has to sign. So you could probably get away with a lot of the things you normally would have signed at meetings being signed either over email or authority explicitly during the vote to be signed on folks' behalf. So if that minimizes the administrative back and forth to town hall, go for it. That's a good legal advice. So
Yeah, I guess there's a couple things we can do is we can grab some email signatures from everybody. We're trying to use DocuSign, but we're running into some procurement issues with DocuSign, but hopefully that'll be up and running soon.
So, I mean, another option before DocuSign is, I mean, you can sign PDFs with just any PDF reader. It's just, it doesn't, you know, it means that one person has to do it, then send that PDF to the next person, then that person does it, then send the PDF to the next person.
Yeah. Okay.
There's only 5 of us. So if you send PDFs of everything that needs to be signed, we can do a chain of signing them today.
Okay. I would say that let's do that for any documents following this meeting. You guys have to come in anyways to pick up the IDs, so we might as well just get the signatures out of the way. We also have, Patty's reminded, we actually have 4 MOUs. So in addition to just the regular collective bargaining agreements for police and fire, we have to have you approve one we just did with the school nurses to have them, because they're all unionized, the school nurses, to have them do extra work for the town.
Okay.
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 Thank you so much, Lisa, for everything. You're an incredible leader.
And will this meeting be available on WinCam, or how is this meeting going to get out to the public? Because we're not in executive session and we've made some pretty big decisions.
It was recorded by Zoom, so now I have to work out what steps we can do next.
Okay.
Works out.
Yeah, I think Patty usually puts together a meeting summary for department heads. I think what we'll do is we'll put together a meeting summary and we'll make that a public document. We'll push that out. So it's not the official minutes yet because that takes a little bit longer, but we can put something out there. And I think that, given folks will know about the town election stuff sooner than later, and they'll know about the state of emergency sooner than later, since they're going to see some action regarding it. So that's a good. That's a very good question about whether we take the recording of this and then give it to WinCam for their records. They don't do it live, but they can at least.
I think if we have it, we should. I mean, I just had a bunch of people that signed on to WinCam for this meeting that were texting me like, where are you guys? Just because it's, we're not just approving a consent agenda. It's pretty big stuff. So moving the election, state of emergency. So people might want to.
Let me figure out, sorry, especially for having the standing meetings that we don't know if we're going to have or not until we have them. Let me work that out with WinCam. I don't know. I know we contacted them for tonight. Did they know about this morning?
We didn't talk about this morning, but they did. It's much easier for him to come in and record the TV than to do it the way they did it with the school board.
Okay. At some point we won't have that ability.
It'll be at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll work it out.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom also does allow to stream directly to YouTube Live as well.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that too. We can do YouTube Live. And then WinCam can figure it out later.
Yeah, I mean, they might be able to pick it up there. Okay.
Any other questions?
No, thank you, Lisa, for everything. I know it's been pretty crazy. So nice to see everyone.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All right. Susan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Yes. All right. See everybody tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.